Oh, I don't know if the mic picked it up, but that was my back, and that felt good. All right. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a variety show with no particular... Wait a second, wait. I feel like I should present this show maybe a bit more accurately, so I'm going to try out a different lyric. All right? So let's try out this different lyric. I feel like this isn't really a variety show because a variety show would mean that I'd have on musical guests and, dancing dogs on circus balls, etc. So let's try this out. Let's see how this goes. 1. This is a mediocre show with no particular niche, baby. It's always about hanging out. Maybe we'll laugh at some stuff, maybe we'll learn something new, but it's always about hanging out, me and you, and you, and you. Welcome to That Thing with James. I'm your host, James, and this is, if you're new to the show, a show about nothing in particular. This is more of it's a loose kind of thing. There's so many podcasts that are like, about things, and inevitably I will get onto a topic, so a particular episode will most likely be about something, but I rarely know. I don't know if it's rarely, but I don't come into the show with any particular subject in mind, other than just to hang out. That's all this is. This is a hangout. This is the kind of thing. Do you ever, put something on in the background? Like lately, I've been watching, scare quotes, watching, quote unquote, Luther, starring Idris Elba. In it, Idris Elba. In it, John Luther. I've been, quote unquote, watching that show, meaning I've had it on in the background, and I'm sure it would be a good show to sit down and focus on. However, that's not what I've been doing because I'm a busy bee. I'm a busy bee. And, I work from home for my day job, fortunately. I've been doing that for years before the pandemic too. So I was already... I already had the stir crazy before everyone else got it. So watching everyone else go stir crazy and have all their realizations and everything, it was kind of like, well, you finally made it. Welcome. Welcome to the 21st century. Regardless, I digress. I have found that Luther is a good background show. And I can just, pop in, if I'm in the middle of something and I get a minute from cooking or something or cleaning up, I get a minute. I'm waiting for the water to boil, so to speak. I can look at the TV, maybe squat like a Slav because it feels good and it's good for your hips. You should Slav squat more often in your life if you're not already. I will squat like a Slav and watch a few minutes, and I will know exactly what's going on. And that is a sign of good writing. And maybe we'll get back to that, but first, let's get back to where I was going with. If you're new to this show, this is basically it. I bullshit for 30 to 45 minutes, and, roughly around 30 to 45 minutes. And that's about it, I have tried making this show about something. I have tried making it some certain ways. And 1, it wasn't fun for me. And 2, it didn't really seem like it was a lot of fun for other people either. Especially if I was putting in a lot of homework for an episode or something. It was a lot of work for very little payoff. And I just said eventually, fuck it. And then I felt guilty. I felt guilty for saying fuck it for a long time. And then I got over that. So, and I'm still doing this show. So here it is. Maybe this will keep you company. Maybe this will keep you entertained. Life is, as I once heard, and I adopted this saying, life is long and boring. So why not find some way to keep yourself entertained, if only passingly? So, and that's kind of what this show is. It's just a hangout. So, hey, what's up? Let's hang out. Now, first of all, I've noticed I've got new people hanging out. I've got new subscribers on my YouTube channel. Hi. Thanks for subscribing to my YouTube channel. Audio-only listeners, if you didn't know, this show's on YouTube. So it's what you get with the audio with my pretty face, because I record video while I'm recording this audio. And also, after I record this episode, I'm going to record a this is the free episode. After this, I'm recording a bonus episode. I record bonus episodes, so every time I release one of these free episodes, rest assured I am also releasing a bonus episode, and I've got some new patrons as well. So thank you for becoming a patron. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I appreciate it. And, there's different tiers and stuff, shout outs with the different tiers so I can show my appreciation for your support. And I've also, since I've been devoting every other week to this comedy shorts series called Minor Tensions that I've been doing, I've been trying to put up some behind the scenes content for that on my Patreon as well. So yeah, if you want to help support the show and get some bonus content, go to patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. So back on to Luther. Let's talk about Luther. It's, like I said, it's a show where I have found, and I'm sure I'm going to go back and sit down and watch it and really pay attention. But I have found thus far that I am doing okay. I know what's going on with the story, just having the show on in the background, just to keep me company, right? And in my eyes, that is a sign of very good writing. All right. So and I'm sure I got this somewhere, probably from reading advice from other writers that I respect. But here's the thing. If you can pop in at any moment and know exactly what's going on, then that's a sign of good writing. Okay? Even I know there's this Kurt Vonnegut thing. He was talking about write as close to the end of the story as possible. So basically, when you start the narrative, know what the end point is, so you have something to write towards. And from the beginning of the story, try to start as close to the end as possible and write the story in such a way that, and I'm sure I'm going to not make this as pithy as he did, Vonnegut did, but write in such a way so that the reader could potentially finish the story themselves if your dog happens to eat your book when you're only halfway through it, And I think that applies for TV as well, or a movie. It's really good writing when you walk in at any moment and you know who the characters are, what they're about, what they're like, what they're going for, what's their objectives, and just have a general idea of what's going on, And that's kind of a really good that's a good sign for writing. So if you're a writer or you're thinking about writing, make sure one of your goals should be to be clear. Just be clear. I feel like a lot of shows nowadays, and I'm sure it's always been like this, but there are a lot of shows out in recent years that rely on, I don't know what's going on. So, for example, this show, this show, what the fuck, Servant. I've been watching this M. Night Shyamalan produced show on Apple TV, and it's called Servant. And I don't know which season is out right now. It's like season 3 or 4. I think we're on season 4 now. And I watched all through the first, let's say, 3 seasons. And this current season, I'm not that invested. Because I feel like the writers are suffering from the Lost syndrome. This is something I thought of yesterday. Hold on, let me take a drink of water. I'm getting NPR mouth. Just a second. I was just thinking. Totally, we'll get back to the writing talk if you're interested in it or not. I don't know. I don't know if you find this interesting. I don't know if you'll find anything I have to say interesting. This show is just me bullshitting. All right, I've got the gift of gab. St. Patrick's Day has come and gone, but it's always St. Patrick's Day in my heart because I kissed the Blarney Stone, and I've got the gift of gab. Granted, I already had it. I've always been a talker and a doer. But, it's nice to say I kissed the Blarney Stone and I got the gift of gab. And people say, oh, you don't know what's on there. You know, I kissed it. People have peed on that. Okay, nerd, fuck off. The cool people, the adults, are talking right now. And the adults kiss a Blarney Stone, whether it's been pissed on or not. We don't care. You know why? Because it's fucking magical. And you know what else is magical? Elevator pitches. A really good elevator pitch. And I'm trying to think of one for this show. Like, I'm thinking of this Star Trek podcast I listen to. I think it's called The Greatest Generation, or The Best Generation, something like that. They're really concise. They're like, this is a podcast about Star Trek by 2 people who are embarrassed to have a podcast about Star Trek. Where's that for this podcast? Where's that for this show? I don't have that. And I've been doing this fucking thing for like, what, 3 years? About 3 years now, if that. And I still don't have a concise pitch. So I'm going to pitch some pitches to you right now. Actually, I've got one in mind. And I want your feedback, if you're watching this on YouTube, you just write in the comments. If you're listening, you can email me at my show email, ThatThingWithJames@gmail.com, or you can DM me on like Instagram and Twitter. My handle on those 2 is @JamesJ Asher. And while I'm on socials, TikTok, if it has not been banned by the time this episode comes out in the United States, my handle there is @TTWJ Productions. All of that information that I've just rattled off is written in this episode's description, so you don't have to, rewind and listen to me ramble through. Regardless, I want your feedback. How does this sound? Especially those of you who've been following this show for a while. What about welcome to That Thing with James? I'm your host, James, and this is a podcast about nothing in particular. What about that? I feel like my concern here is that it might be too close to the Seinfeld thing. Seinfeld, it's a show about nothing. They used that in the show, and that's kind of the rep it got. Even though it was about something, it just, it changed every episode. But I feel like that kind of fits for this show too. So let me know what you think. That Thing with James, a podcast about nothing in particular. What do you think of that? If you think of something better, write it, send it in, tell me about it. Let me know what you think. Okay, so where were we going before that? We were going to England, and we were tuning into the BBC, and we were watching Luther but it was on in the background, and we were able to pop in at any time because the show does not suffer like the show Servant does from what I am now dubbing from this moment called the Lost Syndrome. Have you seen the show Lost? It was a TV show in the early 2000s. I think it was J.J. Abrams. He had a lot of shows out. There was like Heroes and stuff like that. But Lost, it was a big TV show. There's a good chance you've seen it. If you haven't, don't worry. You're not going to get lost in what I'm saying, lost in my sauce, unless I get lost in the sauce. The thing with Lost is that the writers, and especially if you've seen the whole series, then you know how, like, what a flub the final episode was. It was a cop-out. Like, the ending was a total cop-out. If you haven't seen the show, if you haven't seen it all the way through, this is not a spoiler. This is just, in essence, it was kind of like but it was all a dream, that kind of a twist. And the reason that happened is because the writers, and they admitted to this, if I remember correctly, did not know where they were going, which is to say, they did not have an end point. They were not writing toward a final resolution. They were just writing and discovering along the way. And I get that. I've been writing for a long time. I'm not yet aside from blog posts and social media, I am not yet is the key term. This will change soon. A published author. Wink, wink, hint, hint. I might talk about that more in the bonus episode for the patrons. I'm not yet a published writer, but I can tell you from personal experience, having written things in different ways, and as a lifelong consumer of writing and shows based on things written, it really, really, really helps to have a specific endpoint, a specific resolution. Now, there are some people, myself included, who, and I used to be more so in this camp of like, I don't outline, right? Like for this show, I don't outline. This show itself might be a product, a victim of what I'm now calling the Lost Syndrome. In writing, I don't necessarily outline. However, on this project, on the next writing project I'll be working on, I will have a bit more of an outline. And actually, it's not entirely true because I kind of did know the whole story before I sat down to write it. But if you're sitting down to write something, and you don't know what you're going to write about, you just start writing, that's just how it goes anyway. That's how it goes anyway. And you discover the story as you go along, It reveals itself to you, okay? And if you go through this writing thing, you can just start writing and writing and writing and thinking of, maybe you don't have an end point in mind as you're going along and discovering this thing that you're writing. And that's fine. But at some certain point, maybe halfway into the story, it probably should occur to you how you want to end the story. You need to keep writing toward a specific end, because that will help you tie everything together, because you can get lost as you're going through. You're in the jungle of all these ideas of I don't have any fucking ideas, or slash I have too many fucking ideas. There's vines everywhere. We're in a thick, verdant, tropical jungle, and I've only got this, rusty, dull machete. And I'm hacking my way through and discovering little paths here and there, little paths forward. And if you don't have a destination in mind, you will ultimately get lost. And that's what happened with Lost. They didn't know where the fuck they were going. And it was kind of a disappointing thing. But here's an example of Breaking Bad. When they were writing Breaking Bad, they were discovering it as they went along, brick by brick by brick. Like every episode that they wrote out, they weren't sure what was going to happen, how it was going to play out, right? The story revealed itself to them as they worked through it, draft after draft after draft, day after day, okay? However, they had in mind a resolution. They had in mind a specific end. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you want to avoid getting lost in the sauce, if you want to avoid having a lot of loose ends that you might just have to... Stephen King has this fucking problem too. You might have all these loose ends and you're not really sure where you're going. Your ending might be pretty lackluster. Stephen King's a great writer, but he's also known for having some lackluster endings. Like The Stand. A great fucking book, but then it gets to the end and it's like, okay, what the fuck just happened? And that can be avoided if you have a specific end. So the problem I'm having with the show Servant is that I feel like they don't know what the end is. They're just making it up as they go along, and that's fine. That's the essence of writing, is just making shit up as you go along. But if you don't know where you're going, even if it's just a general idea of where you're going, it can get really fucking boring and it can get confusing. So you can tune in and be like, I have no idea what's going on. Unlike something like Luther, where you can just tune in at any moment and say, oh, this is what's going on. Here's where these people are. These are the stakes, right? Fuck. I'm getting lost in my sauce here. Let me take another drink of water. Okay, let's back up a little bit. Let's say the 4th season is the current season of Servant, all right? And I've just kind of stopped watching. I gave up because it doesn't feel like anything is really happening. And that can be pulled off. It's tricky to pull off, to have a show where nothing really happens, where, it's about the vibes. It's tricky to pull off. A good example of someone who can pull that off, like it's more about the mood, it's about the vibe, is someone like David Lynch. David Lynch is an expert at, vibes. Japanese stories are a lot about, the vibe, the mood, and everything. But in there's always some kind of lesson or, general philosophy that can be, discovered if you dissect the layers. Something can be found in those stories. I personally am not finding that in the show Servant. So I watched the first 3 seasons, and it's relying a lot on suspense. It relies on you, the viewer, not really knowing what's going on. But at a certain point, you gotta fucking, inform the audience about what's actually going on. And I understand M. Night Shyamalan's bread and butter, his signature move is, what a twist. There's always a twist. And that's fine. But I don't feel like it's pulling it off in the best way because it's gone so long. It's gone 3 fucking seasons, and especially the 3rd season, I was just like, this is getting just kind of boring because I don't know where the fuck this is going. It's just like, okay, oh, here's the thing. Oh, but this person was lying. And here's the thing. Oh, but this person was lying. That gets kind of fucking boring after a while. And even going with the Stephen King thing, where he is indeed known for having some lackluster endings to his stories. One way that can be resolved is by sort of, you can marry together the lost, the idea of suspense, because Stephen King regards himself not as a horror writer, but as a suspense novelist. I know this because I've watched interviews. I think he went in depth on that on like a Charlie Rose interview. But here's the thing with suspense. You can have suspense where it's like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on, but the mood is dreadful. You can do that. But personally, I think it's best to take like a Buddhist or Taoist approach to suspense. You can leave the audience in the dark, but you can also inform them at the same time. And what I mean when I say like a Buddhist or Taoist way is both of those philosophies say, the best way to achieve serenity is to follow the middle way. Not too much overindulgence, not too much asceticism. Just go the middle way. Moderation, temperance, the temperance tarot card, right? That's, whatever. Here's something. It's popping to mind. It's a tip. It's a suspense tip from one of the masters of suspense, one Alfred Hitchcock. His thing is, I'm trying to remember this. It's the bomb under the table, okay? So say there are 2 people sitting at a table having a conversation in a restaurant, and neither of them know that there is a bomb taped to the bottom of the table at which they sit, and that the bomb is going to go off in 3 minutes. They don't know that. So how do you make that suspenseful for the audience? Well, you inform the audience. In fact, the bomb and the timer on the bomb showing 3 minutes is the first fucking thing you show the audience. You show them the end point. You inform them of the stakes right away. And then the suspense comes from the characters, the 2 people sitting at the table, not knowing that there's a fucking bomb under the table. And they're in the middle of what seems like a pretty in-depth conversation. That will cause suspense for the audience. Oh my God, these people don't know there's a bomb. They don't know they're going to get blowed up. What's going to happen? That's a good way to have suspense. So, I feel like that's, that fits in. That fits in pretty well. And this is what you're witnessing right now is a product of the lost syndrome. I currently am experiencing the lost syndrome because I don't have a specific endpoint, a specific, lesson or thought to end this episode on. So I guess what I want to say is if you're a writer, if you're new to it, or if you've been doing it for a while, and if you haven't tried it, try having a specific resolution in mind and try to inform your audience as much as possible, because if you don't want them tuning out after 3 seasons, it really helps if you make it very clear to the viewer or the reader or the listener who's here, who, what, when, where, why, and how, and what are the stakes, you know? Basics, writing basics. Well, as I said, this show's about nothing in particular. It's just something to have on in the background and some random having a mediocre conversation. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time. And if you want, stick around for the bonus episode. Who knows what I'm going to get into there? I'm going to charge the camera and think about, where I'm going to end the bonus episode. So I've got something to work toward. But that's it for this week. I love you. Shit, I had this fucking James Joyce novel here. I could have talked about that. Whatever. Maybe next time. Bye. God. What am I doing?